Welcome to the Next Class 2.0 with host Rob Birdsell, Kent Hickey, and Erin Barisano. Join us as we discuss the latest trends and innovations shaping education.
Hello and welcome to the Next Class. I'm Rob Birdsell, your host, and joined as usual with my co-host Erin Barisano. Erin, good to see you in lovely Orange County.
Thanks, Rob. It's good to be here, Rob, always.
And we have a special guest today, a friend for many, many years, I think going back almost 20 years, Kerry Robinson. Kerry, welcome to the Next Class.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be joining you.
And Kerry, I noticed for those of you that are watching us, not listening to the podcast, Kerry and I have some ashes on our forehead. Today is Ash Wednesday, and I got to tell you, it's a little difficult finding ashes for me today. I had an 8:30 Zoom, so I couldn't do the morning mass, and for some reason, none of the churches in the North Shore of Chicago here had any lunchtime. And I'm going downtown as soon as we're done with this for dinner. And I was like, what am I going to do? So you know where but I had to get my ashes. It's Ash Wednesday. So the Shields Center at Northwestern University had a drop an ash. That's what they call it, a drop an ash. And all day long they were just doing ashes, and it was lovely. And
that's good. I could use that today because I'm like you, Rob. And for me, it's noon right now, so I'm missing noon mass. So I'm literally in the shadow of the cathedral and have no ashes yet, but they'll be here later today. So
I was going to say, I think you, of all people, can find it where you're at.
Yeah.
So, Kerry, let's get a little background for our listeners on you, but I'll tell a story. So I'm, our viewers, I'm holding a mug from Cristo Rey that was given to some of the founders, and I think that's when you and I met, was when I was at the network, and I think we'd met earlier, but you were at the Leadership Roundtable for Church Management and gave Cristo Rey a very generous award. And that was a special evening that Father Foley and I joined you and your team. But maybe start with your career and where you've been, and then we'll get to where you're at today.
Sure. First of all, I love that you referenced campus ministry and that you went there for your ashes today. I spent almost 10 years expanding Catholic life at Yale University, working very closely with Father Bob Boulogne, my great, great friend, and it was just a tremendous experience. But I got my start working on behalf of the church by virtue of being born to a family that now has an 80-year history of serving the church at the local, national, and international level through the instrument of a private family foundation called the Raskob Foundation for Catholic Activities. And our great-grandparents wanted two things when they set up the foundation. They wanted all of their resources to be used exclusively to support the Catholic Church, but anywhere in the world, any form of ministry, any type of apostolate under the umbrella of the Catholic Church. And their second intention was that their children and descendants would be stewards of the foundation's resources, serving as volunteers and coming together as a family to immerse themselves in the life of the church. So I have loved the diversity and the breadth and depth of the Catholic Church's presence, especially its ministries of education, of healing, of social services, of sowing the seeds of peace, of advocacy. Just extraordinary what our church does all over the world. And I really prayed that I would be used in some way to advance this good work. I never thought of myself as holy enough to be one of the frontline workers in this, as my heroes, women and men, ordained religious and lay, were. But I prayed that maybe God would allow me to do something with my life that would have a positive impact on their ministry and their lives. And here I am at Catholic Charities USA, a complete and total answer to that prayer.
It's beautiful, Kerry, and it reminds me of a prayer that the gospel, come follow me and be the fisher of people, was one that resonated with me for years. And similarly, I was praying, what could God be calling me to? And amazingly, this ILE, this Leadership Institute that Erin and I are involved with, came out of nowhere, and it's very much the fisher of the people for our church and school leaders. So let's come back to you, Catholic Charities USA. Year and a half in, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
So I assume most of our listeners know about Catholic Charities, but maybe give a quick overview of Catholic Charities and then your leadership. What's it been like the first year and a half? Sort of the surprises and the good and the bad surprises that have been challenging for you.
So Catholic Charities USA is a membership organization comprised of 168 local diocesan Catholic Charities agencies. So if you are a listener living in the United States, you have a local Catholic Charities in your diocese. And these 168 members come together under the umbrella of Catholic Charities USA so that they can learn from each other, so that there can be a kind of strong advocacy component to this. We are stronger when we are united. We are stronger when we come together. And the work that is being done at the local agency level is simply responding to the needs, the concrete material needs, and the social, spiritual needs of the poorest, most vulnerable people in our communities. So wherever there is human suffering that is compounded by poverty, isolation, loneliness, addiction, mental ill health, families that just are struggling to make ends meet, this is the population that Catholic Charities exists to serve. And our office here in the headquarters, which is in Alexandria, Virginia, just across the river from, I can see the Washington Monument from where I am. Our office does not do that frontline work. We exist to serve and strengthen all of our member agencies. And we do that by bringing them together, serving as a convener, by coordinating advocacy on the Hill, by providing a lot of Catholic identity support and formation for our members, and by providing funding in times of great need. It turns out we are also the official disaster response agency of the Catholic Church in the U.S. So in a time of disaster, we are able to quickly galvanize the generosity of many people in the United States and even overseas, and deploy 100% of what we raise to the local agency in that time of crisis.
So an example, Erin is in Southern California, and you mentioned you were out there. Can you share how does that look in the LA area, for example?
Yeah, so everyone, of course, is aware of the devastating wildfires that really wreaked havoc throughout the city. While Catholic Charities local staff might be contending with their own evacuation orders or attending to their own neighborhoods, ensuring that their families reach safety, and are left there to care for, again, the most vulnerable people affected by a disaster such as that. We here in Alexandria were able to galvanize a lot of support for them, material support, in-kind support, fundraising. And we also train the entire network in disaster response. And this is really critical because every agency is likely to experience a climate-related disaster at some point in their life. Last year alone, there were close to 80 climate-related disasters across this country that we were helping contend with. Some of them get a lot of news, like the devastating fires in Los Angeles or the twin hurricanes, Milton and Helene, that affected 11 dioceses in across 6 states, but others are more isolated. They may be a tornado or a smaller hurricane, but it still impacts the people in that vicinity. And we bring personnel from across the entire Catholic Charities network to be trained in disaster response work. And then when a disaster happens, we are able to deploy personnel from neighboring dioceses that have not been impacted by that particular crisis, but they volunteer to go and assist and thus learn even more about disaster case management, et cetera. Just the final point on this that I'm particularly proud about. We are in all of these communities, so we are in and of these communities. The Red Cross, which does a wonderful job being deployed immediately and staying for the first few weeks, absolutely critical work. But when they leave, we remain there for the long haul, because it is sometimes years before you can sufficiently rebuild after such a catastrophe.
So, Kerry, that's amazing, and responding to disasters, it is necessary that you're not only prepared on the back end, but able to pivot on a dime, right?
Exactly, correct.
We're living in a time right now, like you said, not only the climate related disasters, the kind of call to action for things like that. Under the new administration, we've had lots of surprises, lots of changes. And can you talk a little bit about how Catholic Charities has been impacted by some of these changes?
One of the things that I think that is important to note is that in our 115-year history in the United States, we have always worked in collaboration with government. It has always been designed to be this public-private partnership. And part of that, honestly, is that as Catholics, we do this work primarily as an expression of our faith that is focused very intently on upholding human dignity. And so it is a gospel mandate for those of us who are Catholic to care for the poor, to provide food to those who are hungry, to welcome the stranger. It's biblical, it's gospel, and it is, in the very marrow, our very DNA as Catholics. And we will always do this work all across the globe. It's partly why I am Catholic. I so admire what a global force for good and global humanitarian network the Catholic Church is. When it comes to this country, over that 115-year period, at different points to handle different populations of people in distress, the government, both at the federal level and at the local state level, have come to Catholic Charities and asked if we would receive a grant or enter into a contract to provide services to hungry people, for example, or to help attend to people who need safe shelter. And each of the local Catholic Charities agencies makes a decision together with their bishop and their board on whether to accept that government funding to attend to that population. And this has been going on for all of these decades. What has been particularly heartbreaking lately, since the inauguration of a new administration, has been the pause of some crucial funding, which issues in a little bit of chaos and confusion because it's so abrupt. And then we don't know if it will be unfrozen, and then lawsuits happen. So there's a lot that is happening every day that we are following. Where it has affected our agencies the most to this point has been in our work with refugee refugee families. So these are families that have been vetted by the government, by the U.S. government, permitted to enter the country legally, and someone needs to care for them, to find housing for them, to help feed them, to provide English lessons, to put their children in schools and make sure that they are safe and welcomed. And Catholic Charities has been playing a role in that. It is going to be seriously compromised by the cessation of that relationship with the government.
Mm-hmm.
And Kerry, can you just talk about the scale of the impact? I know you served 16 million people last year, which is just astonishing. If things were to continue as they are, how many, maybe you don't know a number, but just for our listeners, to get a sense of the scale of the impact of these moves by this administration?
Well, actually, I'm very glad for this question. It turns out that when we look at everything Catholic Charities provides in the United States, only 5% of what we do has to do with refugees and asylum seekers.
Oh, okay.
So 95% of the lion's share of what we do every day is feeding hungry people.
Okay.
It is staffing centers for women and small children who are fleeing domestic violence. It is providing behavioral health services to people who are recovering from addiction or mental ill health. It's providing job training for vets. It's visiting and caring for the elderly who are immobile. I mean, you think of any human ailment, compound it with poverty. That is the person who may feel like these are their worst days and they have nowhere else to turn, and they know that they can find mercy and humanitarian aid and care at Catholic Charities.
So all of that work is not in jeopardy?
It depends, because the government also has some contracts at each of these local agencies to care for some of these populations beyond refugee families. And we are waiting, obviously, along with the entire nonprofit sector and especially the faith-based nonprofit sector, to see how things transpire. And there are many federal budget negotiations taking place, and we will just continue to monitor that situation. What I can say is we will never stop being who we are, because it is core to our religious identity. It would be a mockery of our faith if we were to not respond to upholding human dignity, to caring for people in their needs, and feeding hungry children.
Absolutely. Let's take a short break here to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Catholic Virtual is a proud sponsor of the Next Class 2.0 and dedicated to supporting Catholic school leaders. Our partner schools turn to us for online teaching solutions that fill teacher openings, expand their catalogs to offer more course choice, and provide options for students an alternative learning experience. Learn more about how we can support you at catholicvirtual.com.
That was our short break. Erin, do you want to take the next one?
Sure, yeah. Well, Kerry, I'm just in awe of the scope of the work that Catholic Charities does, and to be at the leading that charge is so impressive. Being a woman leader, a female leader in our church, can you share maybe just some of the struggles, or maybe some advice that you would have for young women who feel called to leadership in our church?
Oh, I love that question. All of my life, I have worked on behalf of the church, truly, since the age of 14, which was when I was first introduced in a formal way to the Raskop Foundation. And I was just seeing the incredible breadth of the church in action across the globe. And my earliest heroes really were women religious sisters. I mean, just
Yeah.
amazing. You want something done that seems impossible, go find a woman religious and her sisters,
Yes.
and they will get the job done. So
Amen to that. Yeah.
they really formed me. And the entire Catholic Church in the United States, its expansion in education and healthcare and social services was built on the backbones of women religious. So growing up, these were my heroes. And I so love this church that we belong to. I mean, truly, truly love it. It has formed the person I am. The fact that it is the largest global humanitarian network in the world has made me forever committed to its health and vitality. I will always, always work to help the church be more worthy of our trust, more worthy of our generosity, because the stakes are so great. It's not just the religious mission of the church that is so essential. Of course it is. But it is also the good that is done in the name of the church in the sectors we care about, education being primary, social services and healing.
Right.
Anyway, I look at the church and the abuse crisis happens, and it absolutely breaks my heart, like just shatters me. And I thought then, we could do a better job if we attended to who is at the tables of decision making and who are in positions of meaningful leadership. We are all myopic on our own, in our own narrowly defined groups. We need each other. We need the diversity of perspectives to be healthy and whole. If it was all women running the church, I would be just as passionate. I'm convinced of it. So, at the time with the abuse crisis, I really thought, where are the parents? Not even just women. Where are the parents making these decisions in this crisis? So, working very hard through Leadership Roundtable was created to bring lay talent, both women's talent and men's talent, to the table to help the church be transparent and accountable. And I have had the great good fortune over 11 years, spanning 3 papacies, so going back quite a bit, a small delegation of my women friends in Catholic philanthropy and I would spend 1 or 2 weeks a year in Rome, meeting specifically and individually with the cardinals who comprised the kind of the inner circle of the Vatican. So they were the prefects and the presidents of the pontifical congregations and councils. And they knew what the purpose of the meeting was each time, and this happened for 11 years. It was to talk about the role of women in the church and opportunities to elevate women to positions of meaningful leadership in the church and at the tables of decision making. We never brought up or had to bring up women's ordination. We were there to develop relationships, trusting, loving relationships with the cardinals, and to present some 47, 48 concrete ways in which we could attend to this challenge that never defied magisterial teaching or canon law. In fact, I often thought it wasn't done just because of a failure of resolve and will. So I'm really pleased that each of the popes who were popes when we were having these conversations, they had all looked out at their curia and lamented the dearth of women in positions of leadership. And so we knew we were on good ground, and the conversations were excellent. I think you have to take the long view, but we're seeing, especially under Pope Francis, some really significant changes in this regard. And if I could just say one last thing, because it really matters to young women, young Catholic women. our thesis was, when a young woman, especially from the West, looks at the landscape of her professional life, she knows she can reach the highest levels of leadership in any sector or industry. And when that same woman, young woman, discerns a vocation of service to the church she loves, she is met with gratuitous obstacles that prevent her from the full expression of all of her gifts and talents. And that is inherently frustrating. And we worry that we lose her and she becomes the CEO of an international corporation. So for the sake of not just women, but for the sake of the church that we so love, we've got to get some of these things moving and really prioritize women's active participation and leadership in the church.
Yeah, I love, your passion for this is, I stand right next to you as a sister in Christ and a leader in our church. And I think it was St. John Paul II who wrote about the female genius, right? And that need, and that, again, as you talked about, that balance of male and female, not only in all of creation and human dignity, but as we look at leadership of an organization, and that being our church. So thank you for just continuing to push that, because it is necessary.
Well, Kerry, we want to be respectful of your time. You're running kind of a large organization. But we conclude every podcast with the same question for every guest, and that is, who is your greatest teacher and why?
Well, I'm just going to say the first person that came to mind, and that is Father Bob Boulogne. He was, for almost 25 years, the Catholic chaplain at Yale University, a diocesan priest from the Archdiocese of Hartford, and really, truly my closest friend. We worked together for almost 10 years to expand Catholic life at Yale. Everybody told us all of the smart reasons we would never succeed. And we really learned a lot about generosity and about the transformative nature of fundraising and philanthropy. I learned from him that it can be done, especially when your intentions are sound and you are grounded in faith and your work serves to benefit others. And he learned from me. So I learned that it can be done. He learned that it can be fun. Thank you for the question. And he died 6 years ago, and I miss him every day. But another reason I'm so profoundly grateful for our faith is we believe in eternal life, that love does not end in death. And he is absolutely present to me virtually every day, almost more accessible, frankly, now than he was when he was alive.
He would have been very pleased to see the Campus Ministry Center at Northwestern. It was bumping today. It was full of energy and kids just sitting there. Students talking and getting the ashes, and you would have loved it too, Kerry. It was a beautiful scene today at lunch.
So happy.
Well, Kerry, thank you once again for coming in the next class. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this great conversation. Kerry, where would those that want to learn more about Catholic Charities, where would you direct them?
Please go to our website, CatholicCharitiesUSA.org, and especially get involved in your local Catholic charities. Support them, pray for them, volunteer with them, donate to them. They are doing such important, merciful work that is really a sign of much needed hope today.
That's beautiful. And thank you for your work, Kerry. This is certainly unique times that we're going through, and the work that you all are doing is just a blessing, a true blessing. So thank you for your work, and thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you all in the next class.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in.